3 spine-chilling campfire tales discover haunted secrets of cursed woods revealed. The flames danced erratically as David and Alex settled around the fire, the distant murmurs of the shadowy woods of Whistler creeping into their thoughts. The air was thick with dread, fueled by terrifying tales of those who had vanished amidst the trees, tales that gripped the tiny coastal town of Alder Creek like a vice. With every crackle of the fire, inky darkness seemed to pulse, and Alex felt a chill skate up his spine. "Are you really going to tell ghost stories? Seriously?" Alex muttered, crossing his arms. His father's attempts to revive the spirit of family adventures, drowned in a tide of awkwardness and grief, felt almost laughable. The laughter of the nearby families acted as a flimsy shield against what lay hidden in the woods. Then came the first sinister tale, shared by a jovial dad 2 fires down, whose voice trembled with playful fright. "So, the story goes, there was once a park ranger who vanished without a trace. They say he was last seen guiding a group of kids on a camping trip, just like this one." The tension twisted. David chuckled softly, trying to ease Alex's skepticism by making light of the nonsense. He didn't know how serious it all really was. But then the shadows morphed, hearts raced, mothers shivered, and Alex felt an unsettling energy pool beneath the laughs. They say he betrayed the trust of his community. Some believe. The dad paused, eyes glistening like sharp glass. He still lurks out there, waiting for unsuspecting campers. Despite David's mockery of the folklore, Alex's pulse quickened. The darkness pressed in, each silhouette casting long, ominous shadows that seemed to whisper sinister secrets just beyond his reach. It was all too much. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. The laughter returned briefly, an uneasy distraction from the chilling tales suffocating the campsite. But when a child's scream ruptured the stillness like a knife breaking glass, panic erupted. Alex's heart leapt, families froze, eyes darting, breath hitching. One of the younger campers had vanished. Fear gripped the adults. Frantic faces, trembling hands grasped flashlights like shields against the oncoming darkness. Then it struck Alex like a bolt. Panic wasn't just about the missing child. Each adult's whisper turned accusatory. Where was she last seen? Did you see anything strange? Trust evaporated like the smoke swirling into the night sky. The safe haven of their camp felt like a cage. In the thickening air, Alex bolted into the trees, heart racing, desperation clawing at him. He stumbled, breathless, and something hard scraped against his fingertips in the underbrush. Shoving leaves aside, he uncovered an old, tarnished badge marked with obscure symbols. Just as he absorbed the horrifying reality of its significance, a sudden rustle sent him tumbling further down the slope, cold dread seeping into his bones. He stood, swathed in darkness, and felt it, cold breath at his neck. Turning slowly, he was met with a shape so unfathomable his pulse stopped. What he glimpsed could either shatter everything he thought he knew or drag him deeper into the chilling embrace of the cursed woods. The figure loomed, an indistinct shadow formed by the night itself. Alex's heart hammered wildly against his ribs, an instinct corroborating the ancient primal urge to flee. But he stood, frozen, staring, rooted by an inexplicable pull toward the grotesque shape. It swayed gently, as if caught in a phantom wind, yet the air around him was eerily still. "Who's there?" he croaked, the words barely escaping his dry throat. A sharp chuckle pierced the tense silence, echoing off the trees and slicing into Alex's nerves. The sound was chilling, a mirthless whisper that seemed to curl around him like smoke. He watched as the shadow shifted, elongating and curling into grotesque forms that twisted unnaturally. Running away? I would. It paused, as if pondering whether to continue. But where's the fun in that? It was a voice that made the hairs on Alex's neck stand on end. It was gravelly, steeped in dread, and unsettlingly familiar, as if the sound were woven into backwoods legends Alex had heard from campfires when he was younger. Panic surged within him as he took a step backward, gravel crunching beneath his feet. "Get away from me!" he shouted, desperately trying to sound braver than he felt. But it stepped closer, the darkness around it thrumming with malevolence. Its face morphed into something human yet distorted, wearing a twisted grin that sent a wave of nausea crashing over Alex. "You think they really care? They left you all behind, didn't they?" Every nerve screamed for him to turn and run. Memories of laughter, safety, and warmth faded into shadows as the figure seemed to peel apart the comfort of his past, revealing the unbreakable isolation entwined with truth. Alex's mind raced. He had to find the child. He had to escape this nightmare. Before he could fully comprehend what he was up against, he caught movement out of the corner of his eye. A small silhouette darted past, almost tripping over roots and shadows. Panic licked at his insides. "Wait!" he cried, springing forward, desperate to stop whoever it was from getting deeper into the woods. "Such a brave boy," the figure called mockingly, trailing behind him, its laughter like the whisper of leaves rustling on a stormy night. "But courage won't save you here." Alex charged into the darkness, racing after the figure, half convinced it wasn't real, half sure that if he hesitated, he'd lose his nerve, or worse, lose everything. The child's presence nagged at him, carving a path through panic. Hushed breaths and rustling leaves turned into a cacophony, their presence seeping into him with a strange mix of fear and adrenaline. He nearly tripped over a gnarled root, desperately regaining balance, pushing through the brambles and low-hanging branches. "Where are you?" he shouted into the void. A faint whimper reached his ears, a haunting plea echoing off the trees. "Help!" It was her voice, tiny and fragile. With newfound determination, Alex lunged toward the sound, catching a glimpse of a small figure crouched beneath a dense cluster of pines. A wave of relief engulfed him momentarily, but it crashed into doubt as he noticed the little girl's eyes, wide and bending in terror towards something behind him. "Don't look back," she whimpered, burying her face in her small arms. The low chuckle behind him returned, and it sent fresh chills spiraling through Alex's spine. He snatched the child's hand and pulled her close. They backed away slowly, hearts pounding, uncertainty gripping them as the figure loomed ever closer, the shadows stretching as if to swallow them whole. With every instinct screaming at him to run, Alex bulldozed through the cold fear clamoring at him. For now, he had to find a way out, away from that dreadful laughter, away from the darkness that seemed alive. But as they darted toward the unseen safety of the firelight, he realized, what if the woods weren't done with them just yet? What if the shadows had only just begun to awaken? Breath came in ragged gasps as they edged further away from the looming figure, the night closing in like a curtain of terror. The girl's grip was like a vice on his hand, warm and trembling. Alex's heart thundered in his chest, drowning out every whisper of resolve. "Just a little further," he urged, forcing his legs to pump faster, the ground beneath them feeling like it might swallow them whole. The darkness wasn't just an absence of light, it pulsated, shifting and writhing. Trees loomed like sinister sentinels, their branches clawing toward them, as if eager to ensnare the fleeing duo. The air thickened with despair, and Alex felt the figure's laughter echoing behind them, a nightmarish symphony to their desperate dash. "Why is it so dark?" the girl whispered, her voice a fragile thread against the backdrop of howling wind and rustling leaves. "Shh, just keep running," he choked out, each word a struggle as the chill coiled around his throat. The girl looked at him, eyes wide with terror. He felt something twist in his gut. Her innocence weighed heavier than any burden he had ever carried. But their moments of flight blurred with haunting echoes, as if the woods conspired to suck them back. Shadows flickered in his periphery, shapes that seemed to dare him to turn and look. An overwhelming compulsion tugged at him, but he pushed it down, focusing on the faint glimmer ahead, a glimpse of hope dancing beyond the trees. He pulled the girl along, dodging low branches that swatted at their faces. The laughter grew louder, more threatening. "You can't escape. I will find you," it called, a promise or perhaps a cruel threat. Alex didn't dare glance back. Fear propelled him forward, pure, instinctual, primal. Suddenly, the ground dropped away, and they stumbled into a clearing. Moonlight spilled down, illuminating the area with an eerie glow. But what should have been a moment of relief turned to horror as Alex caught a sight he wished he hadn't. In the center of the clearing lay a circle of stones, dark and ancient, etched with symbols that pulsed like a heartbeat. Each one oozed an unsettling energy, and he could feel the air crackle with potential terror. The girl whimpered beside him, pressing her small body against his leg. "What is this place?" she asked, her voice trembling. Alex couldn't answer, dread curling in the pit of his stomach. He felt drawn to the stones, an insidious itch beneath his skin. "We need to go," he finally managed to force out, urging her back toward the trees. But the laughter crescendoed, spiraling into a guttural growl that seemed to echo from the stones themselves. "You've arrived at the heart of the woods. You thought you could run, but here you belong to me." His pulse quickened, realization hitting him like a slap. Was this the reason people disappeared in these woods? Did they become part of the darkness, lost forever to its hungry grasp? Dread swelled in his heart as shadows flared, forming ghastly silhouettes that twisted in the moonlight. "Alex!" the girl cried, her voice a sharp shard piercing his panic. He turned, only to see her face going pale, her eyes locking onto something behind him. He barely had time to react as he felt the temperature drop, icy fingers brushing against his back. The air thickened, forcing the breath from his lungs. It was there, tangible and suffocating, hovering just beyond the edge of the clearing. He grabbed the girl's hand, pulling her away from the stones, their escape route behind them seemingly swallowed by the restless mass of shadows that converged, eager drones coiling around them. As he ran, that which held no form whispered promises of despair into his mind. The woods felt alive, the trees closing in, branches weaving like fingers, eager to reach out. "Don't let go," he shouted, but his own voice trembled with doubt. Then he spotted it, an old path winding deeper into the shadows. For just a heartbeat, he hesitated. That path had an allure, an invitation to reveal secrets long buried. But the shapes behind them writhed closer, shadowed faces contorting with malevolence. With a final surge, he dashed toward the path, clutching the girl like a lifeline. They plunged into the dark, abandoning the clearing, abandoning that terrible promise of belonging. But as they entered the narrow passage, a shiver ran down his spine. That laughter, a sinister melody, followed them, echoing between the tree trunks, whispering tantalizing invitations to return. And in that dreadful moment, Alex wondered, what had they awakened? What secrets lay waiting should they linger too long? The chill deepened as they pressed further into the old path, the trees bowing like ancient guardians against their backs. Alex could feel the girl's fear, a spectral weight dragging them down, and for a fleeting moment he wished he could promise her safety. but promises felt hollow in the oppressive darkness. Each footfall took them deeper, the air thicker, moist with the scent of decay. Twisting roots snaked across the trail, threatening to trip them as they navigated the treacherous ground. The laughter had morphed into a low, rumbling growl, echoing off the trees, a terrifying reminder that they were not alone. "Alex," the girl whispered, her voice strained and wavering. "What if it finds us?" His heart dropped at the thought. "It won't," he said, though even he couldn't convince himself. He tightened his grip on her hand, leading them forward, desperate to put distance between them and whatever was pursuing them. A flicker of movement caught his eye, shadows darting in the underbrush. He turned, heart racing, searching for a glimpse of the figure. But all that greeted him was the murmur of the woods, shadows darting just beyond his vision. He pressed onward, bare nerves fraying under the weight of anticipation. Suddenly, the path opened up into another clearing, stark and unnerving. It was a patch of hollow ground where the air felt electric, buzzing with unanswered questions. In the center stood a solitary stone, taller than any of the others, adorned with carvings swirling like angry serpents. The pulsations were unmistakable, matching the frantic beat of his heart. "Are we supposed to go there?" the girl asked, fear spilling into her tone. "I don't know." He stepped forward, compelled. The stone seemed to resonate with his very soul, drawing him close like a moth to a flame. "We should keep moving." Then, from somewhere deep in the forest, a sudden rustle shattered the silence. A massive branch snapped, the sound echoing like thunder. Alex spun around, instincts screaming that they had to leave, had to run. "Run!" he yelled, yanking the girl beside him. They dashed across the clearing, hearts pounding, but the ground trembled beneath them, shifting like living flesh. Behind them, a flash of movement sent them vaulting forward. Shadows leapt from the trees, forming a chaotic dance of darkness. It was as if the woods themselves had awakened, twisting to ensnare them in a trap of sinewy branches. They stumbled back onto the path, breathless and terrified, feeling the heat of pursuit at their backs. Alex cast a desperate gaze over his shoulder, and the sight froze his veins. Eyes glimmering in the dark, a maw of shadows snarling, sharpening to a— "Faster!" he urged, forcing his legs into motion, adrenaline screaming for him to push harder. There was no plan now, just survival. The path twisted like a serpent before him, and with every step he could sense the boundaries of reality blurring. Suddenly, the laughter erupted again, but this time with a twisted delight, drowning out their resolve. "You're not just visitors," it taunted. "You're ingredients." "What does that mean?" the girl gasped, her breath hitching. "They want us. They're playing with us." His mind raced, piecing together fragmented thoughts of the missing, of those who had dashed into the woods and never returned. Had they become part of this sinister game? The urgency thickened, panic spreading like wildfire. They stumbled into another clearing, larger than the previous, and a chilling sight greeted them. Remnants of old campfires flickered weakly, surrounded by tattered fabric. It was a forgotten campsite, abandoned in haste. But their fleeting thoughts of rest faded as the shadows pressed in, their forms distorting and stretching. The ground began to quiver, restless and eager, as if anticipating their next move. "Which way?" the girl cried, eyes wide and clouded with fear. "Anywhere but here!" he shouted, scanning for options. An old tree stood to the left, gnarled roots sprawling like claws, and he beckoned her toward it. As they reached the base, Alex glanced over his shoulder. The shadows rolled closer, confronting them with chilling certainty. Then he saw it, a flash of something metallic, glinting among the debris of the campsite, just out of reach. It looked like a compass, one that belonged to someone who had been lost. "Wait!" he yelled, taking a step back into the clearing to retrieve it, instincts pushing him despite the dangers. Before he could reach it, a howl tore through the night, the forest's chorus of terror crescendoing. He hesitated, gripped by the choice: risk everything for a chance at guidance, or run blindly into darkness. The girl tugged at his sleeve, pulling him back. "Alex, please, we have to go now!" His pulse pounded in his ears as he battled the choice, caught between the past and the unknown future. A decision loomed, heavy and overwhelming: to chase shadows or chase light. And in that fleeting moment, he wondered, what if the compass wasn't just a tool to guide them home, but a key that unlocked the very heart of the darkness chasing them? As they turned toward the looming trees, shadows danced, hungry and alive, time running thin. With a quick glance back, he could already feel the woods closing in again, and the malevolent presence lurking just beyond the edge. Then the chilling realization hit him. Was there any way to truly escape the grip of the woods, or were they fated to meet the same fate as those before them? The laughter echoed, teasing, promising, before plunging them deeper into the unknown. The night was far from over. They sprinted away from the campsite, but the forest seemed to thrive with life, each tree a sentinel of their doom. Branches snagged at their clothes, whipping against their skin, leaving angry welts as they tore through the underbrush. An otherworldly howl reverberated through the air, each pulse of sound like an electric shock, clenching their hearts tighter. Alex glanced sideways at the girl, her wide eyes shining with panic, and felt a surge of determination. "Just a little further," he shouted, though his voice felt lost in the suffocating darkness. The laughter echoed again, bouncing off the trunks surrounding him. It was low and menacing, a sound that promised chase and chaos. "Where are we going?" she panted, struggling to match his pace, her breath hitching in her throat. "Anywhere, anywhere but here," he gasped, desperation gnawing at him, their surroundings shifting and warping as if the earth itself conspired against them. Suddenly the ground before them gave way to a narrow fissure, jagged rocks jutting out like the teeth of a monster. They barely had time to react before the shadows behind them crashed into view, dark forms darting, writhing with wild intent. "Jump!" Alex yelled, taking 2 leaps to clear the gap, pulling her along just in time. They landed hard on the other side, and the impact sent jolts of pain up his legs, but adrenaline kicked in, pushing them onward. The forest felt alive, like it could sense their fear. Roots twisted underfoot, reaching out, grasping, as if to pull them backward. As they escaped the grip of the ground, Alex risked a glance behind him. He saw them, shapes forming, melting together, no longer just shadows, but grotesque caricatures of nightmares. Eyes reflected moonlight, and he could see glistening teeth, sharp and hungry. They weren't just hunting, they were feasting on their fear. "Alex, what are they?" the girl shrieked, stumbling. She had tripped over a root and fell. He instinctively twisted back to help her, refusing to leave her behind, even as time slipped away. "Get up! We can't stop!" he urged, adrenaline spurring his hands to pull her up, his heart racing at the sight of the oncoming horror. They took off again, but the woods grew thicker, darker. It felt as though the trees were pressing in, closing their escape routes. Then he spotted it, a faint light flickering in the distance, like a star buried in the earth's shadow. "A light!" he exclaimed. "We should go toward it." "Do you really think it's safe?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Anything's better than those things behind us." They darted towards the light, which grew brighter as they approached, illuminating a narrow path shadowed by trees. The air felt lighter, a stark contrast to the oppressive gloom that surrounded them moments before. Hope flared within him. Then they moved into the other clearing, and the moment felt surreal. The space opened up, revealing an old structure, crumbling stone walls, vines straining against decay, whispering secrets of a forgotten past. But the laughter returned, sharper now. It danced in the air, vibrating in Alex's bones, mocking their fragile illusion of safety. He backed toward the edge of the clearing, his instincts screaming that they were stepping onto sacred ground, perhaps even a trap laid by the forest itself. Alex! Her grip on his arm tightened, fingers cool with dread. Shh, he hushed her, straining to listen. The laughter twined with whispers, other voices layered beneath it, almost pleading. They edged forward cautiously, each step echoing, as if waking the slumbering spirits tied to this place. Then came a sickly sweet scent, wafting in the air. It curled around them, wrapping them in a thick fog that blurred their senses. No, no, what is this? The girl flinched, her expression twisting in confusion and fear. I don't know, Alex said, panic rising, but we have to keep moving. The laughter grew louder, pulsating, curling around them. Just as he thought they had to turn back, a sudden movement caught his eye. In the center of the ruin stood a figure, obscured by the shadows, but distinctly human. It was too still, too quiet. "Help us!" Alex yelled, desperation spilling over as he took a step closer. The figure turned, grinning wide. The face was familiar, and yet so wrong, twisted in a macabre smile, devoid of humanity. "Welcome, guests," it purred, voice dripping with malevolence. "We've been waiting for you." Fear crashed like waves, flooding Alex's veins. The light from the structure flickered wildly now, casting grotesque shapes against the stone. And then, from the darkness surrounding them, they heard the growls again, closer, more eager. Their pursuers were near, nearly here. "Run!" he shouted instinctively, as the clearing darkened, the past and present threatening to engulf them both. Yet, in that spine-chilling moment, another thought clawed at him. Were they being drawn to the light, or consumed by it? As the shadows chased them deeper into the ancient glade, one truth surged before all others. Surviving the night was only the beginning of their nightmare. What waited at dawn was the true curse of the woods, and they had only just begun to understand. Was this light a sanctuary, or the last flicker of hope before the final extinguishing darkness? They darted from the clearing, but the darkness seemed to stretch out like a living thing, swallowing their desperate flight. Heartbeats thudded loudly in Alex's ears, drowning out the sounds of the forest. The laughing figures had vanished into the shadows behind them, but the growls remained, deep and guttural, promising an end to their run. "Alex, where are we going?" the girl gasped, her voice wavering as fear clawed at her throat. "Just keep moving," he urged, the light from the structure fading behind them, leaving only the stars to guide their frenzied escape. Every breath felt heavy, as if the very air conspired to pull them backwards. They slipped through narrow gaps between the trees, branches scratching at their skin like skeletal fingers. The laughter echoed again, relentless and close. It resonated with a mocking tone, weaving into the very fabric of the night. "Am I going crazy?" she whispered, eyes wide with horror. "Did you hear it too?" He clenched his jaw, fighting the urge to glance back. "We just need to get to safety. That's all that matters." He stumbled over a root, pulling her along. Suddenly, the forest opened up once more, revealing an otherworldly grove bathed in pale moonlight. The trees formed a natural circle, their trunks gnarled and twisted, like ancient sentinels of some forgotten worship. In the center lay a stone altar, carved with symbols that made his skin crawl. "Alex, what is this place?" She trembled, shifting on her feet as the shadows danced at the edges of the grove. "I don't know," he whispered, every instinct screaming that they shouldn't stop. But the growls were close, too close for comfort. The laughter became a din, drowning out their thoughts. "We have to hide," she urged, instinctively moving to the altar. Alex hesitated, but he followed her, pressing against the cold stone, breath shallow. As their bodies pressed into the stone, he noticed that the symbols seemed to pulse faintly, glowing in rhythm with their heartbeats. "What the hell?" he murmured, eyes wide. And then a chilling realization washed over him. These weren't just random patterns. They were eyes, 1,000 of them, watching, unblinking. The ground trembled beneath them, a deep rumble like thunder. The laughter stopped. An eerie silence enveloped them, so thick that even the night insects seemed to hold their breath. It was worse than the howls and growls combined. The quiet was alive, crawling under his skin. "Alex," she breathed, her voice trembling with dread. "Shh," he hissed, straining to listen again. From the shadows emerged a figure, the same one they'd seen in the ruin, but twisted and darker. A husk of its previous self, clothed in shadows and woven with despair. Its face, still grinning that twisted smile, loomed closer, eyes glimmering with malice. "I see you've found our sanctuary," it crooned, voice smooth and sinister. "But did you think a simple light would save you?" Before Alex could respond, a rumbling filled the air, and from the altar's cracks, wispy tendrils of smoke began to rise. Dark, swirling forms. They spiraled into a storm, indistinct whispers carried on the wind, coiling around the pair. "Join us," the figure urged, voice wrapping around his mind like a serpent. Terror washed over Alex, drowning him in uncertainty. He looked at the girl, whose expression mirrored his own, raw fear clashing with a desperate hope. "Run!" she shouted suddenly, breaking the trance. He yanked her away from the altar as the tendrils reached for them, lashing out like living vines. They sprinted back into the shelter of the trees, but the laughter ignited again, raging as a symphony of madness. Glimmers of the stone symbols flared behind them, illuminating the darkness. In flashes as they plunged through the grove, it was a nightmare orchestra, with every beat pushing them further into desperation. The trees moved, alive with malicious intent, branches cracking, roots snaking toward their heels. But then, echoed in the darkness, a voice beckoned softly, alluring. "Come back, we need you." The path ahead twisted and forked wildly, pulling them apart, as the figures in the shadows grew in number, reaching out hungrily. "Alex, which way?" she shouted, panic racing through her voice. I don't know. Just trust me," he yelled, heart racing, every pulse echoing with dread. As they collided into a fork in the path, the laughter erupted into a crescendo. And then came the silence. In the stillness, a horde of shadowy figures emerged from the depths of the woods, eyes glinting wickedly. And Alex realized with cold certainty, they were being hunted, not just by the creatures of darkness, but by the very forest itself. What would happen when the first fingers of dawn broke through the treetops? Would they find sanctuary, or was this just the beginning of a nightmare that would never end? The silence shattered like glass. A low growl emanated from the shadows, deep and echoing, sending shivers racing down Alex's spine. The figures, once mere shapes in the dark, took form, each one a grotesque parody of humanity, with sunken eyes gleaming like polished stones. "Alex!" The girl trembled beside him, clutching his arm. "What do we do?" He spun, scanning their options. The path behind them was blocked, a wall of twisting shadows and the unnatural laughter that sent icy tendrils wrapping around his heart. The only way forward seemed equally grim, but fear ignited his legs. "We run! We just have to keep moving!" They stumbled into the forest, the underbrush snapping underfoot, sound amplifying their desperation. But it felt as though the very ground shifted, sprouting brambles and thorns, eager to ensnare them. The laughter escalated again, a chorus of torment that vibrated through the air, curling around them like smoke. As they sprinted, a figure darted between the trees, long limbs moving with an unsettling grace. "Do you see it?" the girl gasped, eyes wide with horror. "It's getting closer." "Just keep going," he shouted, pushing through the suffocating darkness. Each labored breath tore at his throat like briars. Shadows flickered at the edge of his vision, mocking him with movement. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was circling them, waiting for the perfect moment. Suddenly, the laughter shifted into a dissonant harmony, a haunting melody that echoed through the woods. "This way, come to us." Voices intertwined, resonating with a sickly sweetness. "No!" Alex shouted, furious tears blurring his vision as he clenched his fists. "We can't listen to them." The girl stumbled, her foot caught on a root as the figures loomed closer. Alex's heart raced as he caught her arm just in time. He felt a sharp jolt of panic course through him, but he pulled her.
Upright, urgency pushing them both. "We need to make it to that ridge. We can see everything from there." They charged forward, propelled by desperation, as the shadows chased after them relentlessly. The growls behind them morphed into a cacophony, a sinister symphony that seemed to play on their deepest fears. "Leave us alone!" she cried, her breath shallow and trembling. "We will never leave you," came a cold whisper, too close, crawling under their skin. The ridge loomed ahead, just a few paces more. The ground tilted beneath them, but they pressed on. As they reached the top, the breath caught in Alex's throat. The valley below was littered with strange flickering lights that danced ominously in the darkness. They were not lights at all. They were eyes, a multitude of them, blinking and watching, hungry and waiting. "Alex!" The girl's voice broke, and he turned to see her staring in horror. "No," he choked, realizing too late that they weren't alone. Shadows writhed around them, merging into the earth, forming into tendrils reaching out like a hand of fate. They stood at the edge, the realization sinking in like poison. "They want us," he murmured, panic tightening his throat. The forest had become a living labyrinth, a trap crafted for them, and every escape had been a cruel illusion. "Run!" she screamed, and before he could react, she bolted back down the ridge, her silhouette swallowed by the night. "Wait!" he shouted, but the darkness consumed his voice, and the figures closing in around him retaliated softly with whispers that echoed through the trees. Alex took a step forward, hesitating between the grasp of the shadows and the call of his friend. Just then, a massive shadow surged from the forest depths, a silhouette that towered above the treetops. It drew closer, moving with terrifying speed, everything freezing in that moment. Would it claim them all, or was there still a way to escape? As Alex turned, heart racing, he couldn't see the path back, only the encroaching storm of laughter surrounding him, ready to devour what little remained of hope. There was only one question left echoing in his mind. Could he brave the darkness alone for long enough to save her? The ground beneath Alex shifted, turning the escape route into a treacherous incline. He stumbled, glancing back at the darkness that swallowed his friend. Her screams echoed in his mind, pulling him deeper into a whirl of dread. He forced himself to focus, to push against the paralyzing fear that gripped him. Voices slipped through the shadows, slick and smooth, whispering ghastly truths. "Leave her. They beckoned, "Join us instead." Every syllable dripped with malice, wrapping around him like a noose. He shook his head fiercely, slamming a fist against his skull, trying to dislodge their promises, their lies. Alex sprinted down the ridge, each step measured and frantic. The trees appeared alive, their gnarled branches reaching out, grasping, pulling him into their embrace. He dodged, weaving through the subterranean maze of roots and stones, heart pounding like a war drum. He had to find her. He had to fight this. "Alex!" The scream reverberated from somewhere ahead, tangled in with the uproar of despair. He froze, breath hitching at the sound. Was that her voice? No, the laughter intensified, swirling around him. They were toying with him. "Move!" he commanded himself, feet barely touching the ground as he pushed forward. As he ran, the laughter began to form into distinct phrases, each one more terrifying than the last. "You'll never escape. She belongs to us. Come closer." Panic surged as he skidded to a halt. He was completely lost now, the moon hidden behind a blanket of swirling clouds, leaving him with only the repetitions of their taunts. "Flora, where are you?" His voice broke, agony flooding through his veins. Then he saw them, a cluster of figures partly obscured by the brambles. They loomed there, their faces hidden in the shadows, but he could feel their eyes on him, appraising him like a meal. The growls surged forward, primal and hungry. In their midst, something gleamed, a flicker of light reflecting off something metallic. He squinted, desperately trying to see. Was it a knife? A piece of jewelry? A weapon? No, no! Alex shook his head violently. Not her! Let her go! The words flung from his lips, desperate and raw. The figures turned slightly, as if considering his plea, their heads tilting like crows. "Your time to join her comes soon enough." Before he could process the words, they lunged. The world around Alex spiraled, shadows bursting like waves against him, and he felt himself falling back, losing footing, being pulled toward the darkness. He pushed against it, fear clawing at his chest, his hands grasping for anything solid. Then a piercing scream shattered the air. It froze his blood. "Flora!" He roared into the void, his voice sputtering with desperation. He sprang forward again, ripping through the shadows, heart thundering in his ears. Every instinct told him to go back, to hide, but he couldn't, not now. Suddenly, light broke through the trees. He stumbled into a clearing, illuminated by an otherworldly glow. The air felt charged, thickening with tension. In the center, a circle of stone stood, inscribed with symbols that twisted in ways he couldn't comprehend. Flames danced along the edges, casting long shadows in chaotic directions. And there she was, standing with an expression that was blank yet brimming with terror, staring directly at him. "Alex," she whispered, her lips barely moving. Before he could reach her, the ground trembled again. The figures surged at the edge of the clearing, dragging their dark forms closer, hungry for what was rightfully theirs. "Flora!" he screamed, but the sound barely reached her, drowned out by the roar of the shadows. Time stretched, seconds turning to eternity, as he grasped at her very spirit through the thick, oppressive air. The response was there, a glimmer of recognition in her eyes. But the darkness surged, the laughter rising to a deafening crescendo. Would he reach her in time, or would the shadows consume them both? As the figures closed in, Alex took a trembling step forward, ready to defy all that hunted them. The urgency boiled in his veins. Could he save her before the darkness swallowed everything whole? Alex lunged towards Flora, desperation clawing at his throat.
The shadows twisted, a living entity, slithering closer, hungry and malicious. He could feel their breath, cold and metallic, brushing against his skin. The circle of stones loomed high, almost mocking him with their ancient wisdom, while Flora remained trapped in her glassy stare. "Get away from her!" he roared, pushing past the thick air that crackled with malevolence. But the figures laughed, the sound a harrowing symphony that mingled with Flora's silence, chilling him to the core. They didn't heed his words. Instead, they took another step forward, their grotesque forms dancing in and out of the flickering light. The ground beneath shook again, disorienting him. It felt as though the very earth wanted to swallow him whole, to lump him in with whatever darkness had ensnared Flora. Instinct kicked in, a fierce pulse of survival igniting within him. He focused on the space between the stones, a void filled with a promise he had to reach. "Flora!" he cried again, heart racing. He could see her trembling lips. She was trying to speak, trying to break through the haze that confined her. But the shadows were relentless, tightening their grip. "Join us. She's already ours." The whispers morphed into a chant, echoing off the trees. Alex's pulse throbbed in his temples. He had to drown out their voices. He had to break their hold. With raw determination, he surged forward, moving fast and low. He knew he couldn't waste a second. Every moment felt like a countdown to her final breath. As he closed the distance, he felt the flicker in the air shift, as if the shadows realized he was coming for her. "Stop! Back away!" he shouted, fists raised, ready to fight. He was scared, terrified in fact, but he'd never let them take her without a fight. Just as he reached the edge of the circle, a tide of darkness recoiled, giving him a fraction of a chance. He dove forward, reaching for her. Their fingers almost touched, but the shadows wailed, a deafening sound that vibrated through the ground beneath him. He felt the pull, a force dragging him back, as if the darkness had decided enough was enough. "No! Flora!" The scream tore from his lips again as he fought against it. The air turned electric, and the fire's glow intensified, illuminating the symbols etched into the stones. They began to pulsate, resonating with an energy that felt ancient and wild. "What do I do?" gasped, feeling the shadows wrap tighter around him. The laughter transformed into a chorus of taunts. "You're too late! Join her! Join us!" In that moment, something inside him snapped. He realized that these figures, these tormentors, fed on his fear. The deeper his dread sank, the stronger they became. With sheer willpower, he wrenched himself free from the darkness. "No!" he shouted, every ounce of defiance surging through his veins. "You will not have her!" With one final thrust, he lunged for Flora, casting aside doubt and fear like a blanket. Their fingers met, a shocking jolt of warmth igniting where the shadows tried to claim them both. But as he grasped her hand, he felt the power of the night change. The shadows howled louder, a furious retaliation, their forms twisting in spirals of rage. The symbols began to blaze brighter, illuminating his face with an eerie glow. "Together!" he shouted, pulling Flora toward the light, ready to face whatever monsters waited beyond the darkness. Then silence fell. The air, thick and heavy, quivered in anticipation. The shadows recoiled as if sensing a shift. Would the light be enough? Could they escape? Or would they remain forever trapped, lost in this cursed place? Doubt blossomed in the pit of his stomach as he scanned her eyes. He saw fear, but behind it, resolve. But just before he could take another breath, something broke through the circle. A figure, monstrous and towering, pulsed with darkness. "Foolish boy," it hissed, voice like nails on a chalkboard. And just like that, Alex understood. The real horror was yet to come. How could he fight a nightmare that wore the faces of the lost? Would they survive this wretched game, or would they become just another whisper in the dark? The monstrous figure loomed closer, shadows swirling like a tempest around it. Alex's heart hammered as he held Flora's hand tightly, a lifeline in the whirlwind of terror. The grotesque semblance of a once human form shifted before them, a face distorted by a malicious grin that sent icy dread curdling in Alex's gut. "Join us," it hissed, tendrils of darkness slithering toward them, eager to trap and ensnare. A shiver ran through Flora, and Alex could see the fear dancing in her wide eyes. They were standing at the precipice of oblivion. "No!" he shouted, clinging to determination. "We won't let you take us." The words ignited something inside him, a flicker of defiance that surged like fire through his veins. He stepped forward, pulling Flora with him, their fingers interlocked, unbreakable. Together, they were stronger. Fueled by adrenaline, they charged toward the figure. Light flared from the stones surrounding them, pulsing in time with their racing hearts, as if the very earth recognized their fight. The shadows thickened, attempting to swallow them, but the power surged from the stones intensified. "Together!" Alex shouted, a mantra against the dark. Flora's grip tightened, matching his confidence. They ran straight into the heart of the pulsing energy, the shadows screaming as the light flared like a supernova in the night. The darkness shrieked, recoiling, and in that moment of chaos, Alex saw the glimmers of fear flicker across the monstrous face. As they plunged deeper into the illumination, the veils of shadow distorted, faces forming and dissolving within the blackness. Echoes of the lost cried out, voices swirling around them, tangled with fear and desperation. "You can't escape." They burst into the center of the light, where colors swirled like paint on canvas, vibrant and warm against the coldness of despair. It felt like freedom, a breath of fresh air after being submerged in darkness. But the growls persisted, vile and relentless, echoing from the edges of the grove. Alex turned to see the shadows creeping back, drawn to the light like moths to a flame, hungry and greedy to reclaim what they believed was theirs. "We can't stop," he urged, the urgency surging through him. "Keep going." Flora nodded, her resolve igniting as they pressed onward deeper into the heart of the grove. Together they navigated through narrow paths lit by ethereal glimmers that seemed to guide them home. In front of them rose a fork in their path, one side veiled in ominous darkness, the other beckoning with an inviting glow. "Look!" Flora exclaimed, pointing to the glowing side. Hope ignited within Alex's chest as he felt a pull toward the path lit with promise. With determination they veered left, trusting the pulsating light above them, pushing deeper into the unknown. Yet the shadows followed, their malevolent whispers curling around them. "Fading light, fading hope," a chilling voice echoed, sending a shiver down Alex's spine. "Not today," he replied fiercely, feeling the heat of his own courage. He turned back to Flora, their eyes locking. That connection, pure and powerful, reminded him that they weren't just running from darkness, they were running towards freedom. "We're going to make it, I promise." As they pressed on, the light ahead grew brighter, vibrating with life. Suddenly they burst into a clearing that felt like stepping into a different realm. The trees around them seemed to shimmer, the undergrowth clearing into a luminous carpet of flowers that glowed like fireflies in the night. "Is this real?" Flora asked, her voice barely above a whisper, awe enveloping her. "I think we might have found it," Alex replied, marveling at the miraculous sight before them. But that moment of relief shattered when the shadows surged in, roaring with fury. Branches twisted and lashed at them, angry like the grasping hands of the damned. The air grew thick with tension, and the laughter returned, louder and more menacing than before. Turn back, the shadows screamed in unison, their rage palpable. Run! Alex grabbed Flora's hand, and together they surged forward into the sanctuary, the promise of safety just a heartbeat away. The shadows seemed to swirl faster, but their recklessness began to falter as the light drew closer. With one final push, they dove toward the center of the clearing, toward the vivid glow that felt like arms welcoming them home. As they broke through the final barrier, an incandescent aura embraced them, surrounding them in warmth. They spun, hearts racing, watching as the shadows writhed in frustration, unable to approach the light. The laughter turned from mocking to desperate screams, a cacophony of lost souls clawing at the edges, wishing to reclaim. But the light was impenetrable. What is this? Flora gasped, looking around wide-eyed. I think this is it. We did it, Alex replied, panting with relief. The light surged, pulsing rhythmically, calming the tempest of darkness. But then Alex hesitated, fear gripping him. Would the shadows ever give up? Would they keep searching, forever lurking? I don't think they'll ever really go away, he murmured, the reality settling in. We're safe for now, Flora reassured him, her voice steadying his racing heart. As they stood within that bubble of light, the bond between them deepened, stronger than the dark, more radiant than anything they left behind. They realized the true curse of the woods wasn't just the shadows that hunted them, but the fear that sought to consume them. And together, hand in hand, they stepped further into the light, knowing that as long as they were together, they could face whatever came next. The first rays of dawn broke above the trees, spilling golden light into the clearing. And though the shadows shrank back, remnants of their haunting echoed on the edges of their memory. They could face each day, knowing they had conquered the darkness together. In that peaceful dawn, shadows found naught but soft whispers and distant sighs, retreating into the recesses from where they came, forever bound to the cursed woods, while Flora and Alex, eternally intertwined, faced the world ahead, carved from something stronger than fear, hope. Now, if you loved this spine-chilling adventure, you need to subscribe to the channel immediately so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now and help us feed the algorithm with your support. And flood the comments section with your thoughts about the gripping conclusion. We want to hear your reactions and theories. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this thrilling resolution. True fans always understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions. And flood the comments section with your thoughts about the gripping conclusion. We want to hear your reactions and theories. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this thrilling resolution. True fans always understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.